Hello, and welcome to Kapow, where we take reading comics, watching cartoons, and collecting stuff very, very seriously. I'm Sonya.
And I'm Al. You know what? That's not even your serious face.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
It totally is.
You know what? I just spilled a whole bunch of cola on your new trade of Saga. See, now that's your serious face. But don't worry, apart from all the seriousness, we also have a lot of fun here at King's Comics. We're going to be looking at reviews of Insurgent and also One Trick Ripoff.
Yeah, and Ray is coming along and he's bringing the animated film Mass Effect Paragon Lost, which is going to be pretty cool.
That's going to be great. But first we're going to have a look at Todd, the ugliest kid on Earth.
You didn't really spill cola on my saga, did you?
No, it was a joke.
Okay, good. I was worried.
As titles go, Todd, the ugliest kid on Earth, is certainly one that grabs your attention, I think. I mean, it's big, it's brash, and it's confusing. And I think the same can be said of the content of this comic, don't you think?
Look, I know what you mean, but I've got to say, the minute I saw it, I knew I had to read that comic.
Yeah, it was a bit like that. But what is it about, I hear you ask, which is kind of strange. Yeah. Well, it's basically about this incredibly sweet-natured little kid called Todd, who is pretty much treated like dirt by everybody that he meets.
Yes.
And who is also so ugly that his parents make him wear a paper bag over his head whenever he leaves, even when he's in the house.
Even when he's
anytime
in the
he's
house.
not sleeping.
Yep. It's also about a homicidal maniac who kills children with a giant axe.
And it's a comedy.
A black comedy, obviously.
Yeah.
Everything in this comic is so extreme and so bizarre that the comedy really just shines through this. Todd lives in a town that is just populated by the most horrible people, from the police chief through to school teachers who really should never have any contact with children to Todd's own parents.
Yeah, every character in here is just insanely perverse.
They're horrible, and yet this Todd, this poor kid, has not a bad word to say about any of them, and a lot of that is where the comedy lies, is Todd's reaction to these things.
I know what you mean. I've got to say though, I did have a bit of trouble getting into this one. There's a kind of a tone you need to be receptive to, and I think you've got M.K. Perker's cartoonish art style, which, while great, just really kind of goes very much at odds with some of this really grim stuff that's happening, like little children being decapitated.
Yes.
For God's sake. And then there's some odd visual quirks, like at one point this wind-blown leaf just smashes a window and then knocks one of these decapitated heads off the top of a piano. It's a lot of weird stuff in here. I read this through about 3 times and I still didn't know quite where to put it.
Yeah, see, I really enjoyed this pretty much from the first read through. I think Ken Christensen has a really irreverent tone to his writing, and that combined with Perker's bright and bold and cheery kind of art, there's a juxtaposition there that I just really, really enjoyed. I giggled maniacally through this. I think possibly I'm a little cracked, but I found it hilarious, and I'm definitely going to pick up the next one. So Todd is definitely a buy from me.
Okay. Well, look, I can certainly see there's a lot of good stuff going on here. I'm not going to deny that at all. The artwork really is very good. I really like the character models. The colours worked really well too.
Definitely. The colour work in this is great.
First page and you see that just bright, cheery suburban dream, and then all this ugliness starts coming in. So I can see all that good stuff, but I think there's a certain mindset that you need to be in to really take this one on board, and I couldn't quite get there. So I think some people will probably react the same. So comes right down to it, I'm going to have to give this one a borrow.
Fair enough.
Still good, but just it's a taste thing.
It's a taste thing.
Yeah.
Now, crossing over from one platform to another is a bit of a treacherous path.
Generally, yes, established fans can be quite difficult to please, especially when dealing with, the crossover, to the point where I'm not sure if even they know what they want at times. And Mass Effect Paragon Lost is no exception. Production IG and BioWare, the 2 guys who gave us Kill Bill Volume 1 and Ghost in the Shell, a standalone complex, are the companies that are handling this huge task. Now, Paragon Lost is supposed to be a prequel of Mass Effect 3, so we follow the early career of Alliance Marine James Vega, who's voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr. Now, he leads an elite Special Forces squad into battle against a mysterious alien threat known as the Collectors. Stationed at a colony in a remote star system, Vega and his troops must protect the colonists from these alien invaders bent on abducting humans for unknown purposes. He's outmanned and outgunned, and Vega must rally his squad to defend the colony at all costs, even if it means making the ultimate sacrifice. Sonya.
Yes.
Was this the story that you wanted to follow?
No, not really. Look, I'm a massive fan of Mass Effect, and within that amazing universe that was created within the game, this was the story they chose to tell. I don't understand why, there was Garrus putting his team together on Omega, or we could have followed Liara, going after the Shadow Broker, or even, a bit of an expose on the seedy world of Cerberus. There were so many more amazing stories, and yet they went with Vega.
Yeah, I think you raise a very good point, and that is the story is weak sauce, on top of which, it's supposed to be a prequel to Mass Effect 3, and yet it kind of deals with issues that are dealt with already and established in Mass Effect 2, and the film was released months after Mass Effect 3 was released as a game, and so continuity-wise and content-wise, it doesn't really offer much extra to the universe. So I kind of wonder who it's made for. If it's made for fans, they may be a little disappointed.
Yep.
If it's made for newcomers as a way of introducing them to the universe, then I don't think it works there either. They should have started at the beginning with Commander Shepard, because he's a tried and proven protagonist, and he's already got a very rich history, and it would have been a nice, easier way to sort of ease them into the game, but into the film rather. Now, that aside, all the class types, the recognizable special abilities, they're all in there, but they largely go underdeveloped and underexplored. They may even go unnoticed. For myself, because I'm a fan of the game and played quite extensively in Sonya as well, you get to recognize some of these little nuances and the scattering of smaller details that hail to the game, and I kind of got a little bit of enjoyment out of that, recognizing those, but that's just a private little thing.
I don't know, I kind of felt like all the characters were at the first stage of customization when you kind of start the game. It's like, this is man 1 and this is woman 1.
Right.
There was no individuality to me, and they just felt, really underdeveloped.
Yes, underdeveloped, sure, but I don't know. I still thought they had a point of difference about them. We have to understand that we're not dealing with 20 plus, 30 plus, 40 plus hours of gameplay and storyline to sort of delve into, and so therefore, I don't know. I don't think it's possible to explore the plethora of characters that are available to you in the universe, nor all of those that they tried to present to us within the film as well. Certainly within 90 minutes. I like what you said earlier about trying to strip it back and simplify it. Try and get just one character and follow a side quest of theirs that they've spoken about in the game. That would have been much more interesting. More of a better window to sort of explore there.
Yeah.
Now, visually, I wasn't blown away. It was sort of a little bit more TV animation than film animation. It didn't kind of reach that higher caliber I was hoping for, even though some of the action sequences are very good. The soundtrack as well, it's good.
Yeah, it blends in really nicely with what's going on.
Yeah, it doesn't detract too much from the action. I thought it was quite nice. And the sound effects, though, they're very solid. Certainly the weaponry, all those sounds, they're very good. The 3D modeling of the vehicles, like the Mako, and some of the architecture on the colony, I thought that was good work.
Yeah, most of it was good. The Krogan ship wasn't. It kind of looked like a bit of a box on strings. It was weird. You had this really nice colony and all that kind, and then you go to the Krogan ship, which looks like it was straight out of the 80s. It was a bit weird.
Yeah. What about the voices, though? Did you like the voices? I liked them.
Look, everyone did a good job.
Yeah.
There was nothing that really stood out to me. I gotta say, with some of the characters, that's a bit like, but that's not what they sound like. I know what these people sound like, and obviously there's different actors that are doing the voices, so it was a bit of a clang. But I think the biggest problem with the voice work were the lines that they had to say. This was so heavily cliched, it was really painful to me at some points, especially, and I have to share this, my personal favourite, where one of the characters gets captured by a collector and actually says, "Collect this," before killing him.
Yes, I know. It's terrible, but look, I still think that, it wouldn't have been as bad if the stakes were higher and we were on board from this, this story from the beginning, more invested. You have a look at something like The Avengers, and it's full of cliche one-liners, these cheesy one-liners, and I love that film. And I don't know, I think it's got a little bit more to do with, again, the content over the structure of it. It's just the content-wise, it's lacking this. Yeah.
There's no sense of urgency, I felt, with the film. Like when you play the game, you pull through. Even in the quieter moments when you're making the decisions around the ship, there is still a certain level of anxiety and urgency that you have to get this stuff done.
Yes.
And I felt that was really lacking in this film. I also didn't really care for any of the characters. I had no empathy for them. And I've got to say, I was actually really glad when it was over. Look,
Okay.
I am a big fan of Mass Effect, and I was so disappointed by this that I'm gonna burn it.
Oh, wow.
Yep, Sonya's
Really?
being harsh. I'm coming down.
Not a berry?
No, it's
right.
worse than a berry. It's a burn.
Wow, okay. Well, I feel I need to put this into some kind of context here, because Sonya and I are both big fans of the games, and it's very difficult to sort of look at this film in its own merits. But at the same time, we're exactly the kind of people that this film is going to initially attract.
That's right.
And so therefore, just like the original ending to Mass Effect 3, it leaves you with a bit of bitterness. But despite, all my grievances, I'm still going to give this film a borrow, actually.
Really?
Yes, really. I find it quite entertaining. And look, I recommend it to fans and, noobs alike. I think you will get something out of it, even if you want to tear it to shreds, if you like. But, if you can isolate it away from the universe, I don't think it's a terrible tale, as difficult as that may seem. But my main comment or criticism and advice, so if you're watching Production IG and BioWare,
Listen to us.
what else would you be doing right now?
Exactly.
Thank you. And that is to, bring it out as a movie series.
Yes.
It'd be 3 seasons, each with 12 episodes and each 40 minutes long. That would be awesome.
I can get on board with that.
You could?
I could.
That's right.
Yep.
Who's with me?
They can't hear you.
That's cool. I'm with me.
Okay, good.
You're with me.
I'm with you.
Yes. We're with us.
Yes. We love our creator-owned titles here at Kapow, and so we were pleased to see DC releasing a new creator-owned title called Insurgent.
Yeah, it's good to see DC scooping up some of these titles that were originally meant to come out through Wildstorm before the imprint was closed down. But is Insurgent worth saving?
Well, that really is the question, isn't it, sir?
Yeah.
Now, the plot revolves around a failed super soldier program where people were enhanced by robotics and then hidden within the general populace. Unsurprisingly, it all goes horribly, horribly wrong.
Not a shocker.
No, not at all. Yeah. And they have to pull in a private contractor called John Ravane to terminate the Insurgent program.
Yeah, so we see Ravane taking out the what he believes to be the last of the insurgents, and then we flash forward 10 years to find out that, again, unsurprisingly, there are a number of these insurgents still out there hidden within society. And so Ravane is called out of retirement for one last job.
There is a heavy Blade Runner vibe running through this series, really, isn't it?
There really is. I think Ravane is basically Deckard from Blade Runner. It's clearly a massive inspiration for this story. But I've got to say, I think writers F.J. DeSanto and Todd Farmer really just rummaged around in a sack full of action movie cliches and pulled out Insurgent. There's not really much in the way of fresh ideas
There's
here.
not, and I gotta say, even with the artwork, there's not really much going on there either. Federico Dell'Acchio has a bit of a flat and textureless feel to a lot of these panels, and unfortunately it comes out in the faces, which is where we get our main point of empathy. So you really don't have any emotional content to any of these characters.
Really, no.
They're just there, cardboard cutouts. Although I will say some of the action sequences were quite engaging. There was a good cause and effect to them.
Look, I know this is an action story, but I don't think that gives it an excuse for this kind of paint-by-numbers storytelling, do you?
Okay, no, not entirely. Look, if you're going to go into this one, please don't go into it expecting anything new or fresh or even surprising, because if you've watched any kind of action film from the 80s, you're going to know how this is going to end up. But I think I have a soft spot for that kind of action cliche, and you're going to get some decent assassin versus cyborg action. So for me, it's a borrow. It's a low borrow, but it's a borrow.
I think you are being way too generous on this one. I get, it's an action story,
It's
this is a very familiar story, very badly told, and I think you are being way too nice on this. I mean, there are moments, from when Ravane adopts the daughter of the last insurgent that he kills and raises her at his own, and then when the big bad guy shows up wearing a white trench coat and a Hannibal Lecter mask.
And it's obviously a bad guy.
There were moments in here that almost made me cringe.
I think they made me laugh.
Oh, which also not good. Honestly, this may not be quite bad enough for a burn. I have read worse things, but it's definitely bad enough for a berry. So, berry.
Poor Ravane.
Yeah, I'm gonna go watch an Arnie film or something.
Okay, well, we are here for our very first King's Comic Chat of 2013. Very excited. We've got Scott and Siobhan, who we always love having a big chat to. Now, for this episode, we've decided on something a little bit interesting, a little bit different. In the last couple of weeks, we've heard that the Sebastian Hawks project has been fully funded through Possible.com, which is amazing. So that brings up the question of crowdfunding. So, guys, do we think it's good? Do we think it's bad? How do we think, is that going to be the future of independent comics now?
I don't think it'll be like the future exclusively of independent comics. It seems like a fairly natural progression for me anyway, just because there's always been such a strong connection between fans and creators in comics. Like you go back to forums or just the letters page, like that's always been a really strong connection. So this feels like just another way for fans to be involved and to be part of a community and be part of deciding what comes out, which is exciting.
A lot of fans feel a lot of ownership over characters, so it gives them an idea and it gives them a way to kind of express that love
which
for
can
them.
be annoying, because if you feel like you own these characters and you have no control over them, that can be really irritating to some people. This is a nice way to be like, I really like this idea, I like this creator, I want to see this comic, let's make it happen.
I've got to ask, you mentioned Sebastian Hawks. With this, we've got a director who's brought this out, who's actually, he's got a name for himself already. He could have probably got the money anyway. So, why not do it the regular way? Why put it out to the fans?
To the crowdfunding.
Well, it's probably got its advantages and disadvantages. I think it gets put out there in its early stages. There's always going to be that risk that in its while it's being developed, that someone that's going to have better funding or is easily funded is going to do it bigger and better in some other way, sort of thing. So there is that risk. You have your idea taken from you.
I suppose there is that crossover from film to comics. Maybe it's not going to work. So I suppose putting it out to the crowd is a good way of sort of testing the waters.
Like I think even with big names, you don't know that a project's going to go really well. A lot of things with huge creators tank. So this is a really good way of testing reader interest and seeing what sort of response you're going to get. And I think that's really good for creators, and it gives them a bit more autonomy. It means they don't have to answer to a publisher who might want to change.
It is truly their own project. It's their own baby that they can then do with what they will, really.
Release onto
the world. Have there been any titles that you guys have come across that have come into existence through crowdfunding?
Well, one that's it's not a comic, but it is a comic creator, Ryan North, who does the Adventure Time comic and Dinosaur comics. He's done a Hamlet Choose Your Own Adventure book through Kickstarter.
That's excellent.
Cool. I think it's now the highest paid Kickstarter. It reached its funding limit within a couple of weeks, and now it's gone way over.
That's amazing.
And he just increased the sort of prizes that you get if you funded. It's now longer than the original play.
Which takes some doing. Really,
it's 4-hour play.
And you can play as Ophelia, and you can do all these other cool little things. And it's a really it's such a good idea, and it wouldn't have come about through regular publishers. Because there was actually a guy who was shopping around the exact same idea, unknown to Ryan North, for years, and publishers just would not touch it. And this is a way that, to show people that, there is interest for this stuff that's a bit weirder, but there's definitely a market for it.
Because there has been, through kind of my research into it, I've noticed that a lot of people have been saying that a lot of titles and projects have come about that normal, your mainstream kind of ones just won't touch.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of issues and things that they're like, no, we're not going to put that in print. But they found a home with crowdfunding. So I think maybe it's a good way of, like we were saying, newer people getting involved and getting a bit of a portfolio behind them, going, look, people like my work, which I think is a really great avenue for people.
Definitely, and that can then lead into stuff to the bigger publishers. If you have something that you can say, look, people will buy
People like
this.
this.
People have bought this. My
yeah.
work makes money.
Yeah.
That can be interesting.
Yeah, it's perfect for comics, really. I mean, it's such a visual medium that you put something out there. I think they call it crowd wisdom. Something's out there and it really grabs a lot of people. And it's I guess you can't help but stand up and notice when.
I suppose. Yeah. I mean, Cyberforce, though, I think is an interesting example of this, because this was something that was it's being offered free to people now, but it doesn't seem to really be taking off. How's it been going with people grabbing it in store?
People have been grabbing it because it's free.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's had like a hugely positive response.
Has anybody been coming in looking for it specifically, though?
People have been
Good
for the first issue.
I guess it
mostly.
was a fan favorite from a while back.
Sure.
A team of characters from that sort of mid to late '90s era, but it's. It's been a bit of a slow burner through the shop. But,
but even though that maybe hasn't been the hugest success ever, it did mean that fans were able to have their say and have their opinion and say hey, look, I love these characters, please bring them back. Yeah. And it showed that at least there was enough interest for that, even if the comic itself wasn't totally brilliant.
It is always interesting when fans have a direct access to it. I mean, it's odd line to draw, but immediately I started thinking of the whole Jason Todd, should we kill him or not?
It maybe isn't always the best. Because fans sometimes don't know what's best for them.
No. And I did read somewhere that it may have even been that there was a guy who had a telephone machine set up that was just dialing the same number over and over.
Thing.
So one guy may have been responsible for Jason Todd's death. But I don't know why I make that connection. But immediately that immediate impact
it's the connection.
Of the fans.
That's what it is. And I think the crowdfunding comic books, I think it's a really, personally, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a way that we can all be a part of the comic world as well. That in a way that we can't normally. We're not shareholders. We're not editors in chief. We're not. But we can actually go. You know what? I helped make that be in existence, which I think is a really good idea.
I'm a little wary, I've got to say. I mean, with these sort of pitches, yes, that's kind of my thing. With these pitches, I mean, people put out, here's some artwork, here's a basic storyline, give me money for that. People are not going to have as broad an understanding of what the series is actually going to be at that stage. So, I don't know, there's restricted information that people have access to. It could be positive, it could be negative. I don't know, a bit on the fence.
Your end product could be something totally different.
This is it. Yeah. After the funding's already been gotten. So
that's it,
I don't know, I'm a little wary.
Look, I think regardless of whether you're a fan of crowdfunding or completely against it, it is something that's here, and I think it's something that's going to be around for a while. We've seen a huge surge of projects that are coming in existence because of this. So I think it's a really interesting kind of topic. So Kapowians, if you've got ideas, you've got plans to maybe put something together yourself, we'd love to hear and see about your experience with this kind of thing. Awesome. Thank you guys for coming on. First one for 2013. Woo. See you guys next time. Bye. Paul Pope is a comic book writer and artist who has collected a number of Eisner Awards and has no shortage of acclaim attached to his name. This week we're having a look at a hardcover collection published by Image, which is kind of a retrospective of his work, kind of.
Yeah, it is kind of. It spans his career in many ways. Now, it starts off with the one-trick ripoff, which revolves around Vim and Tubby, who are a young couple who are very much in love and who have decided that they're going to get out of a life of crime by robbing the gang that Tubby's a part of. The
Not
One
always
Tricks.
a good plan.
Yeah.
Now we're told at the start that the One Tricks are called this because they know, funnily enough, one trick. But it's not until a little bit later on in the story that we find out that this trick they know is an incredible power of suggestion, which means they can pretty much make anyone do whatever they want them to.
Yeah, all they have to do is tell them. Yeah, and nobody thinks that's strange.
Not at all.
Is the interesting thing.
No.
And it's that kind of surreal plot device that is one of the reasons this story works so well, I think.
Yeah.
And I think there's an argument to be made with this piece for, writer and artist being the same person.
Absolutely.
Because there's just such a fantastic consistency between those two in this story.
Yeah, there's a really wonderful sense of being out of place that you get from Pope's artwork, combined with this kind of weird story that's going along. I mean, at one stage you're kind of traveling through the city and there's an LAPD cop standing on top of a tank directing traffic. And that's just what they do.
Everyday stuff.
They just have tanks now. And then, of course, you've got these hypnotic gangsters. And the art style that Pope has to show when they're actually doing this power of suggestion is so amazing.
When when they've told somebody to do something,
Yeah.
and you see the words of what they'd told them just
Behind them.
repeated over and over behind them, and these jagged, jumbled letters that you can't quite make out, but you can.
You actually start feeling a bit hypnotised.
It's really interesting style. It really is.
It is, but there was a section. I know I have my own little favourite sections, but you were saying that the one in the desert was your favourite kind of sequence. Is that
really
because
like
of
that.
the art style as well, or was there
Kind
a
of.
story?
It was actually more so because of the colours, just these vibrant blues and yellows, and then some money comes out, and the greens in there. I loved that. That really made it pop.
It's quite interesting that it's the colours that got to you, because originally when this was first published, it was in black and white.
When it was with Dark Horse,
it's been coloured retroactively, and I think they have done such an amazing job putting the colours with Pope's artwork. It blends so beautifully. All the tones are so rich, and they work with this surreal tone that runs through the book. It's just, I can't say enough about this. It's amazing.
I know, but look, I will say here, this is only half the
half
book
the
that we've
book.
looked at so far. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that's in the second half. We should move on.
Okay. The second half of this, Deep Cuts, is a series of vignettes from Pope's other works, some of which have never been published before, and this is the first time we get to see them, or indeed they're rare pieces that you see once and then they disappear.
Forever. Yeah, I found it really interesting to see his take on crime fiction there, and then back to back with that, you then see him illustrating work from Rimbaud or Sophocles.
Yeah, I really liked that Antigone piece from Sophocles. I thought it was really quite evocative.
It was lovely.
There was another little standout for me, though, which was Super Trouble. Now, this is something that Pope created for the Japanese publishing house Kodansha, but it didn't actually get published then. It has been published for its very first time here within this collection, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, no, you do get the feeling of, uncovering hidden treasure
you
when
do.
you
It's a
read
little
this
gem.
one. Yeah, new stuff that hasn't been seen before. That's lovely that's finding a life and getting out there.
It is.
And I think Pope is one of those creators who, they're kind of a jack of all trades. They can jump into any genre and they can wring something out of it. And he just has this gleeful sense of motion and emotion. In his
so
work.
emotional.
That's so clear.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this one. I'm definitely giving it a buy.
Yeah, I think if you're a fan of Pope's work from maybe THB or his work with Marvel or DC, I think you're going to get something really special out of this. If you're brand new to Pope's work, you are in for one amazing ride, because this guy, he's pretty cool to check out.
Yeah.
It's definitely a big buy from me. This is one of my top 5s, I think, now.
Ooh, goodness.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no small prize there.
No. Well, time certainly does fly when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Yes, you know what? We should build some sort of flying machine that runs on fun and positively charged awesome.
I like this plan. Let's do this.
Let's do it. We
Yes.
can make it. You know what? I don't even know what we'd make the wheels out of.
Well, let's just not and say that we did.
Yes, Ray will definitely believe us.
Yes.
Now, don't forget, guys, you can always get more of us over at sftv.com.au, where this week we are reviewing The Black Beetle and Thundercracker.
Yes, very cool. Now, we will be back, of course, next week, guys, with reviews of, wait, what we...
I thought you were going to...
It was your turn this week. What do you...
You know what? I'm going to go have a look.
You
and
go,
see
yeah.
what's new.
We'll get back to you on that one, Kapowians. We'll see you all next week, though. It'll be good, I promise. Dalek, 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 Dalek.